So, intimacy and sexual health after brain injury is why we are here today. And this is a topic that, after going to the last ABI conference in Niagara Falls, one of the speakers, Dr. Snyderman, was really interested to have everyone start talking about this topic a lot more because it is something we're naturally shy to speak about. And he had each of us, raise our hand if we comfortably talk about this topic with our clients, and very few hands went up. And so then there was a lot of us in the group that really got active in learning as much as we could. He had some really good insights, and I will try to reiterate what he spoke to us about a little bit, but I am not the expert in neuro health. He is. So please, I have some resources. You can have them later that are listed beneath each of these slide topics, and you can do your own research or reach out to those or check those things out as well to gain as much insight as you can, more than I can give you today. So, as we all know, after a concussion, it hits each of us in a different way, and it affects so many different areas of our being and our feelings of wellness. And the main ones that really fall into play in terms of sexual function and our sex drive and our even desire to be around people is this overstimulation piece that often goes on. It's really difficult to be close and intimate with someone when being touched or just overwhelmed with the demands of contact of another person's are too much at the end of the day. There's issues of nausea and fatigue. Um, the lowered sex drive piece I'll talk about in terms of it comes as part of the amygdala that's been altered after a concussion or brain injury. Um, Mood regulation challenges, all that relate back to fatigue and nausea and overstimulation. And then just managing, if you're managing pain and physical discomfort on top of the concussion symptoms, it really lowers that feeling good, that yeah, I feel good today, that, and which really is part of your sex drive and is part of the desire to be with others, to share. Those are all They're all such a complex part of that. Like, I find getting out, working out, having a great accomplishment at work, all of those give you that confidence and that, you're leading into sex drive. And if you're limited to experience those things due to injury and fatigue and loss of, job because you've had loss of function, then it limits the sources of feeling good that lead into sex drive. There are factors of nutrition. That is the section that Kylie was going to take on, that I'm going to address from her slides as we go through it later. The amygdala, the function of the amygdala, and the sort of the science part of libido. That, as everyone and most of us, or all of us, are learning, that there is neurological involvement with a concussion, and we don't know enough about concussion to exactly know which area of the brain is exactly operating in this way. They've come out with SPECT scans and all different ways to try and look at the brain and understand it more. The last conference we were at, they covered a lot of this stuff about what's happening with the amygdala, and they're really just piecing those things together. So we think, for your purposes, is knowing there is a biological component to this too, that we're also managing and overwhelming, other than just the environmental factors and the physical factors that drive libido. And so when different neurotransmitters, there are less of them in the system, and this is like dopamine, serotonin, all of those pieces are all part of driving the libido. Also, there are hormones that are also involved in all of this as well, and when the regulation factors are thrown off by different neurotransmitter balances, then it affects all your areas of function. And so that sometimes rebalances. Sometimes the addition of some medicines can help rebalance. Time rebalances. new learning may rise dopamine, which helps a balance. Like there's all these pieces of our rehab that may recreate that balance that we need for a really well functioning system. And so I wish there was a cut and dried, you break a bone, you know what needs to be done to fix it. It's not as cut and clear with your brain. We're working on it. Well, I'm not working on it personally. Scientists are working on it to understand it more and to be able to help more straightforwardly. So when we are just back to the states of concussion and post accident, other than what's physically happening in our body, we also have a lot of PTSD regulation challenges that can come post a traumatic event, and that can present itself in many ways. Like, people freeze, they withdraw, they pull away from a situation. They can become combative or run away from it, irritable, don't touch me. It's like you have no control in your world all day long. You just want to be left alone at home and rest and recover and control what you can there. And those are factors that lead to challenges with intimacy with another person. Naturally, humans have the advantage of social connection and engagement to help calm the system. But if you're coming home with an exhausted system and don't have the energy for social engagement, then how do we gain the comfort and energy then to move into that libido piece and intimacy piece? The secondary symptoms that affect the presenting factors are anything that we may have been carrying with us even prior to a trauma or a collision or injury, and experiences of daily pain and we're all individuals, and we all have different things that bring comfort, different things that raise anxiety, and we can normally manage those. We've lived long lives managing these, pieces that develop, all these different little pieces that make us up. Then we have an injury or this trauma, and there's not enough energy to control those, and they're out of the box, and they can get in the way of calm interactions and intimacy. They lead to feelings of increased anxiety, shame, or guilt. If you're the type of individual that gains a lot of self esteem from the work you accomplish in a day, your contribution to society, and you're not able to do those things, then it's really hard to maintain self esteem and confidence. That is, as I discussed, a big part of libido and that desire to share with another person. So in our environment, as a general rule, it's really helpful for us to learn what it is that calms our system so that we can put some energy back into the system as opposed to constantly using energy to manage anxiety provoking events. So there's all kinds of strategies that we've talked about in CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, and in DBT, that dialectical. And the reason we want to learn some of those strategies and figure out what works for us within those strategies, is it breathing that is my help? Is it vision work and breathing that helps me? Because when we're anxious, it's because our system's in that alarm state, that fight or flight space, and we don't want it to shut down. We want to feed it energy. We want to calm the system. We want to bring it down. So surrounding ourselves in our home with things that are a comfort to us, pictures of ourselves happy, pictures of the people we love, making sure our calendar reflects activities and people and events that bring us joy, and then figuring out ways that we can get the most out of those experiences. And we all know there are people out there, we hear their voice, it's like a breath of fresh air, or we hear their voice and every muscle in your body gets stiff. And so that's the natural alarm system inside our body that we aren't as good as controlling as we may have been pre-injury, pre-trauma, that we want to get really good at controlling again and have some really good strategies to manage. Because the nervous system is in charge of a lot of different pieces. And that's what tightens the stomach. That's what tightens the chest, the breathing. And people who breathe from their upper chest and tight um, have more trouble relaxing and actually rolling into that place where intimacy is welcomed. If you're very tense, it's very hard to feel connected and close to someone because you're on guard. Um, that can be more upsetting for the stomach. Maybe if we could get the nervous system under control, the stomach issues will calm down. The pain issues won't seem as exaggerated. Um, pain is legitimately pain. However, it can take up a lot more space in our day-to-day experiences when we are also incredibly tense and worried about more harm coming our way and are surrounded by irritating forces. So EMDR is one of those methods like CBT and the same, and DBT, in that it's a way to release some of the trauma. So I would encourage you, I have some, again, attached to these slides, some more information about these topics. I have actually done, and it may still be out there on the BIAR website, uh, um, a slide, like a presentation about EMDR, if people want to know more about that and how it may help them to calm the system, to put them in a better place to pursue intimacy with a loved one. Because a chronic response leads to an exhausted system. An exhausted system really has little energy for engaging with others. So we want to regulate the system as much as possible. And so, like, DBT, CBT, EMDR, I hate acronyms, I apologize for them, but it is in the materials, and you can investigate that. Medications and supplements, um, learning about what medications are out there and understanding them and deciding from an informed place whether they're ones that you think would work for you or that you want to try. Different supplements. Some of that is covered in Kylie's presentation. I know, as a general rule, um, essential fatty acids are something a lot of my clients have found helpful in just providing a healthy fat, which can be soothing to the nervous system. Medical supervision, if you're finding that there doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason, like if you're having a lot of trouble figuring out what are my triggers, like it just feels like everything is my trigger, maybe going through it with a doctor or that occupational therapist, or learning as much as you can through BIST and organizations like BIAR that give you that information to understand what's happening. Understanding the issue allows us then to develop strategies that work for us to master it. Naturopathic doctors have been a choice of many to find out those alternate, if you're not comfortable with the traditional pharmaceutical medications and supplements, then maybe a naturopathic doctor will have a wider range or a different range of ways to come at it from those perspectives. We want to get into survival, out of survival and into thriving mode if we can. So learning what's happening within your body, what happens when the trigger comes up, how am I reacting? Well, I don't want that. Deciding who you want to be in situations where triggers come up. And so having really good systems of managing those, getting rid of trauma, allows you to be in more of a position of managing that situation. Think about what your inner voice is saying. Is it helpful or is it hurting you? You're with your husband or your wife or your partner, and there is just this inner voice of, you don't contribute. You don't contribute to this household. You don't earn an income. You are someone this person has to care for. It really is disruptive to your feeling good and wanting to engage with someone. It's really, really hurtful for your system. It sucks energy to manage those hurtful words. So this is why CBT, breathing, all these different mechanisms, like all these different pathways, therapies are important to quiet those voices and to bring voice to the voices of like to the feelings of confidence and seeing yourself as a valuable and engaging person and someone, and that helps that piece of self-esteem that is part of libido and comfort in engaging with others. So I guess it's starting with that body scan, going right back to, where am I feeling tension, increased tension because of my worries? Like, if you were to think about being intimate with someone, what is coming up? Is there fear? Is it embarrassment? Is it lack of confidence? Like trying to examine what is exactly going through your mind, what's happening in the body, even thinking about intimacy with someone. Is it irritation? Is it, does it feel like a burden? Like, what is it that is happening? So, identifying it helps us to break it down, pull it apart, change it into a different way of looking at it, a different perspective. So this is where coming back into who, what, where, and when. What are those things then that are going to help me change that viewpoint and put me in a more of a place of confidence as I'm entering into engaging with someone else? I just want to make, so we talked about the education and understanding. I just want to make sure that, because there was some, sorry, guys, if I'm flipping ahead a bit. Good. Okay. There was some, one of my other ones didn't have all the pieces in here. So I just wanted to make sure all the pieces we were on the right one. Okay. So here's one of the tools that you can pick up for increasing safety, because um, safety is a huge piece of confidence, of moving into relationships with self-esteem, and combating those pieces that interrupt those feelings. So, and this is a really, I like this book because it is available on, you can download it as an Audible, and I think even the public library system may have a version of this. And it talks about specific exercises. I listen to it while I drive. I'm always reviewing it over and over. Um, and there is a hard copy book as well. But, and honestly, just typing in polyvagal exercises into a search engine on your computer will pull up a lot of these things for safety and connection as well, broken into pieces. So there doesn't have to be that financial investment in the book, but it's just ways to help yourself reach a place of calm because you've got an end goal, right? You're more motivated when you've got an end goal. Like, I want to enjoy my days better. I want to be close and intimate with people, and I want to feel comfortable in those situations. It goes through a lot of, these are the things that I think are really stimulating for your nervous system to calm and increase the pieces of libido. We talked about the omega-3 fatty acids. Um, with meditation, the key in meditation in this case is, yes, calming, but the key component of it is when those feelings, when if you're, sitting there and you're breathing and you're thinking about intimacy, and your first impulse is to shrink into, like, I cannot be with that person. It's replacing that image with yourself confidently with that person, being able to switch the thought from it's going to be a negative experience to a positive experience is a very powerful piece of actually experiencing it in a positive way. And meditation is how we get better at shifting thoughts. And that's the goal in it. I don't want to be controlled by negative thoughts of how things are, or how I am, or how I'm not worthy. I want to change I'm not worthy to I'm actually a pretty decent person, and I'm really kind, and I have a lot to offer. And that in itself brings the system down and allows it to relax. And that's the power of meditation in this case. Um, if you have the ability to have some physical exercise, it raises endorphins. It's amazing for the body to have exercise, and it's hard to get when you are in pain and when you're managing an injury. So getting really creative to figure it out. Is it, I joined for a while. I had no knee, actually. I had an injury really badly. I wasn't able to walk for 12 weeks. I would go to the aquafit, I'm in the pool with the just the flotation device, and I was just floating in the water for a little bit, but it was a lot for me at that time, so it felt like really good exercise. I don't run anymore. I don't do any of those cardio exercises that I once loved, but I have found a way through with a yoga movement um hybrid version that I created that works for myself along with music that makes me feel good after I'm doing it. Um, Having exposing yourself to those people that make you laugh, that you feel comfortable socializing with, all of these pieces relax the system, and making a concerted effort to engage in them every day is feeding the nervous system, calming it, and opening doors for the next step into comfortable intimate engagement. Deep and slow breathing when you feel like things are getting tense, just like that conscious effort to bring it down. In the mornings before brush my teeth, I gargle all the time, every day, because all those little pieces, humming, singing, that's a vibration, and apparently our nervous system is really thrives on that vibration. So those are little things we can do for it every day. There's been a lot of research around probiotics and how good they are for the system. And if anyone was present for my polyvagal talk, cold exposure um, is really helpful for that mental switch of this is harmful and hurting me. I'm not good enough to be able to make that switch. It's being able to switch the neural pathway. That's a skill. It's like building a muscle. I need to be able to do this because I will every time get lost in this cycle of I'm not good enough for this person. I'm not attractive. I'm not desirable. I'm not worthy. No, thank you. We want to get really good at switching, and the connection to a cold exposure exercise. I'm not talking about plunging into freezing cold water and giving yourself a heart attack. I don't do that, but I have turned down the water in the shower, and instead of standing there and just grinning and bearing it, which is what a lot of us do in reality in life, is grin and bear what's happening around us. There's a conversation, an internal conversation of actually this water is fine. It's not going to hurt me. I am okay. I am safe. I'm actually going to feel better after I leave this shower, and I'm going to feel rejuvenated, and it's good. And you can physically feel your shoulders come down, and that's the win of cold exposure. It's even when, it's freezing cold outside, like, no way, I'm not going out there. Um, if you have the physical wellness to do it, it is really, really good for the system. It's you being in charge of, no, we're actually fine. We're dressed warm. We're going to do this. It's just that practice of switching thoughts. And it's a really acute lesson. Cold water, cold exposure is a really acute lesson in you being in charge of your thoughts and feelings, as opposed to them being in charge of you and hurting you. So checking and calming the emotional responses. That's really the summary of all of that conversation. So If that means you have to limit the number of sensory inputs in a room to be able to engage in the next step, then great. That's what you're going to do. You're also going to lower your response to it if you can through breathing and relaxing and one step at a time. Maybe you build up to that and it's just a practice of getting better and better at developing an environment of intimacy and controlling how you feel within that environment for a while. Um, that positive, I just want to reiterate that positive feeling, that thinking it through. Heart Math has some, if you were to type in Heart Math online, it talks a lot about um, breathing through your heart to achieve that, because the heart is a really effective organ for calming the system, even more so than your head. So if you're not having success thinking calming thoughts, try breathing them in and out through your heart to calm in the environment of intimacy that you're developing. And in that environment of intimacy where maybe the lights are dimmed and things are soft and there's really comfortable things for you that make it better for you, then the vision goes along with that whole environment of softness. And practicing it even on your own at home makes it a lot easier to do when someone else is there, and then we have to like deal with all those feelings of anxiety around being with a person in that space. So some there's different forms of intimacy that people talk about. There's like emotional intimacy, physical, spiritual, and then of course sexual. And so um if the sexual piece is overwhelming, why don't we start working on some of the other pieces of shared experience and sharing? And this takes a lot of bravery to be able to accomplish, but the gain is intense. Even if it's, if you're in a relationship with your partner and it just seems like the conversation is all um, anxiety focused or fear focused or anger coming out when you don't want it to be, it's kind of examining. You've done a lot of work now. If through the first half, looking at your emotions, understanding it, it's okay to be honest about what you're feeling about certain situations so that they can understand where you're coming from. And you know what, they need to be honest too, so you guys can figure it out together. It's a really necessary step in being together, is being honest with one another. And it's really hard to do. It's really hard to share insecurities. It's really hard to share things about the other person you don't particularly love, but it's a way to understand why and where, and to be really honest with one another. And it done in a gentle way and from an honest place, it can increase emotional togetherness, feelings of emotional bonding and connection. Also, on the lighter side of that, make sure you are spending time in situations where, like I said, what's on the calendar in which you two share time together that allows you to share positive emotions. It's so great to laugh together. Is it a favorite movie that you used to love? Is it a place you used to go? Maybe you can't go there for as long. You won't do the exact same things, but we've gone down to, we don't have young children anymore, but the two of us, my partner and I, will still walk down to the local sports day fair, and we don't stay and do all the same things, but we share some memories. We may meet a couple that we knew prior. Like, it's just those small moments, even just walking, that whole experience of walking there together was, it's a short walk for us, so it brings back a lot of shared emotion, and it creates just that feeling of warmth around yourselves. The physical piece, the physical can be really hard, talking about being touching others. So start sit back to back, sit on the floor, sit back to back, and just sit there. When that becomes a little more comfortable to do, maybe you just sit and listen to a podcast back to back and share that together. And when that's a little more comfortable, maybe it's about sitting face to face. It's a hard thing to sit face to face with your partner and just look at them, or just put your hands on theirs or theirs on yours. There's a lot of ways to build intimacy around just being with a person, and it doesn't have to lead to anything else. For this moment in time, we're just going to sit here together, and I'm going to, run my hands down your arms. And again, there's a lot of these physical comfort building exercises that can be found online. And I would encourage you to be brave and try some of them. Spiritual, that can be what connects you spiritually. Do you both share the same religious background? Do you both gain a sense of calm and spirituality by being in nature together? We want to share as much as possible to build all the background pieces of intimacy and connection. And then sexually, these pieces are leading into that comfort within the actual act of sexuality, and that may go back to the more science side of it. If there is anything neurologically or neurotransmitter wise or hormone wise in being out of balance, that's leading to erectile dysfunction or to lowered libido overall. And that's a piece to understand and gain as much information about as you can and to work on. It doesn't inhibit all the other pieces of intimacy that are incredible and that allow you an amazing connection to your partner in that way. So these practicing these exercises a little bit at a time is allows you to gain some confidence in being with that person in a more intimate way. And it's hard. It's hard for anyone, I think, at within a relationship after well, at any point in the relationship it can be hard to have really close connection within intimacy. And so all these exercises are beneficial for everyone and almost essential in a system that has been disrupted, that is exhausted, that has been injured, that is in recovery. We want to, build on those feelings of confidence. We want to reduce any shame that we may be feeling through all those background therapeutic, distraction, redirection, perspective building, because we're all worthy of love and connection. And I think it's important, like, if you were to think about another person, would you deny them intimacy and connection? No. So don't deny yourself that. It's important. And I think, yeah. So I'm at the end of it. I'm just going to pop up. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and pop up the other the one on, oh, can't do that. Fine, here we are. And I will share that one with you. Okay, is everyone seeing the word sex and libido by Choreo Nutrition? Yes. Great. Okay, so normally Kylie would be running this portion of it. So I'm going to be going through it much quicker. Kylie is someone that we can reach if there are direct questions about what she was bringing to this presentation through the nutrition perspective. She talks about the importance of sex in general for cardiovascular health. It does, it's very calming. I mean, it's a great way to burn calories, all that stuff. Like, it's just we're meant to have a libido. We're meant to have intimacy and sex. We're meant to, to have an orgasm. There's all processes of that is calming and health building for the body. And then she goes in to talk about just some of the stats around calories burned. Um, she just backs everything up with science. Yeah, decreased pain and headaches. First, that there's been studies shown that, it does bring relief to migraine, and different headache symptoms. And because when endorphins are released, it can soothe like nerve impulses that cause migraines. So that's what's the mechanism going on there. And she does cite the study that if people did want to look into that further, it's definitely there. Mental health. Um, I I would agree that it correlates with a more positive mental health. There's a feeling of connection when sexual activity occurs in conjunction with that intimacy building process. There's just such a feeling of calm and connection that comes from it. So and there is the physical side of having confidence even in masturbation to achieve some of the physical results of the physical releases. Those are all very positive. That's amplified when shared with another person, because then those aspects of intimacy enter the equation as well. So both are good. Intimacy is, if it's just a key component to connection and feeling well. Estrogen helps women in having like younger looking skin and boosts different collagen building processes in the body. So, and sexual activity raises like it's a release of estrogen. So there's that to be gained as well from the process. I remember watching a documentary years ago with not Bill Nye. I'm never gonna remember his name in the middle of, this, but and he talked about that, like, it's really important to have sexual activity in terms of, like, chemical balance in your body, on a regular basis. So then, Kylie covers a little bit of the foods, particular to each sex that, each gender that, promotes some of the underlying neurological food. So chocolate is that's why we give it on Valentine's Day, I guess, is it increases serotonin and dopamine levels. That's sort of those happy, feel good neurotransmitters. And then I can't say this one, phenethylamine, give it a go. So that is what we produce when we're in love. When you're falling in love with someone, there's all that feeling of euphoria or whatever. That's due to phenethylamine. Blood flow, like cocoa, that whole, like I would like to say coffee is then equally as good, but there's something in cocoa in it in particular, increases blood flow and stimulation. Um, and then that also leads into that libido thing, that stimulation and libido. Pistachio nuts. So, nuts in general can be really health building for a system, but pistachio nuts increase blood flow to the penis for a firmer erection. So, if there's any piece of that in erectile dysfunction or what's happening with individuals, maybe adding pistachio nuts can just, and I'm not saying it's going to cure it, it may aid in just resolving that situation. Oysters. We've been hearing this long, like thing, oysters, oysters, oysters. So there is some truth to it in the vitamin D and zinc that they contain and how healthy that is for your body. Vitamin D is talked about extensively in terms of its mood regulation and health for the body. And so oysters are full of vitamin D. And both of those things help testosterone levels and blood flow. So for both genders, which is great. So here's the the top foods that she's identified are the omega-3s, which are, nuts and seeds. They come in. It's also present in tuna and oily fishes, salmons, avocados, the dark leafy greens. We always have to eat our dark leafy greens. Can't get away from it. Um, because they have a lot of health building factors, like for women and for men in terms of blood flow. Oysters, again, watermelon. It has amino acid citrulline, which helps to reduce erectile dysfunction. And then the Mediterranean diet, and that would take just checking that out online, the Mediterranean diet, because it's got a lot of inflammation reducing foods in eating that diet. Well, I guess because you're eliminating a lot of the inflammation causing foods. So, as a supplement, and I am not a nutritionist, so it's best to speak to a nutritionist, your doctor, or reach out with a question to Kylie about that. But it's about blood levels of nitrous oxide are involved, which improves circulation, dilation of blood vessels. So the research has shown that it can increase desire, increased excitement, increase in orgasm, and that, afterglow feeling of an orgasm stays with the person longer in taking ginkgo biloba. Uh, it's better for female than men, but it's appropriate for both. The other thing for women is saffron. Of course, the most expensive spice I think there is out there, saffron. But it's a great one for, especially when if you're having to take antidepressants, or if you're needing to or choosing to take antidepressants. Um, it's shown to have a correlation for improving sexual arousal. Apples, so an apple a day is more than just keeping the doctor away. For men, ginseng, it's been used for energy. That's what I have known it to be used for, but it's talking about erectile function and overall satisfaction. Seems to be some evidence correlating those two for men. And then nuts. They're good for everyone, and for men in particular, orgasmic function and sexual desire compared to a control group. So I would not say that any of these things are a cure, but all in all, maybe can contribute to helping in a situation. Maca, I don't know if other people have heard of. I have. I remember once someone recommending that during for menstrual regulation or something. So it seems as though it plays a role as well in improved sexual desire. Um, she notes some studies in her that back that up and speak to that. And it seems to be in the same place as when they talked about women with saffron. It looks like maca does some of the same thing in improving sexual desire if you're using it in conjunction with, if you're noticing a loss of that in conjunction of taking antidepressant drugs. And so just to summarize the foods, there's a summary list there. And again, both my presentation and Kylie's will be available if you wanted to have a copy of it to review anything I've talked about, or if anyone has any questions that they would like to ask, I'm happy to do my best to answer them.